Joins us a little bit later. He's the Speaker of the House in North Dakota, and he finds himself as the new chair of legislative management after Ray Holmberg resigned his position yesterday. Congressman Kelly Armstrong is going to join us as well today on News and Views. But first, we head to St. Paul, get a chance to visit with Kent Eakin, Minnesota State Senator representing District 4, and he is the minority whip. Senator Eakin, good to have you on News and Views, sir.
Hey, Joel, it's great to be with you again.
So, give me an update. I mean, we're still arguing about who gets the money, but I have to throw this to you. You know, there are people that believe that it's going to be tougher to cut a deal because it's going to be a good off-year election for Republicans, and they could get the governorship. And why would they cut a deal with you when they can make the decisions alone?
Yeah, you bring up a good point, Joel, and I've heard, there is talk about that. I know that some among Republican circles have been talking about the possibility of not having a deal so that, if they get control of all three branches after the next election, then they'll have a huge pile of money to work with. And so it might complicate things in the end. I still think there will be a deal because, nobody wants to go home without a deal. No incumbent does. And it's maybe true that it would hurt Democrats more because Democrats are in control of the governor's office as well as the House will take the blame for it more. But it is kind of a pox on both houses. Both sides are going to pay some price for it. Anybody who's in office and at a time when you don't get the deal done, it's going to take some hits. So I think the pressure is really going to amp up at the end to get some kind of a deal. And we've had a tradition of doing that here in Minnesota for quite some time, of being able to work across the party divide. So I'm still optimistic for that. It's a lot of money that we have to work with, $9.25 billion, the largest surplus historically in the state of Minnesota. And sometimes that makes things harder, too, because expectations also go through the roof when we have a surplus. During deficit times, everybody kind of just keeps their head down, and we don't hear a lot because people just hope they don't get cut. But when you have a surplus, everybody's at the door and trying to get some share of that surplus. So that can complicate it. But and right now what's happening is both sides are putting forward their big omnibus spending bills and also the tax bills coming forward. And it's kind of the first initial proposals going into the final weeks of session here. And there's going to be some huge differences between the House and the Senate that have to be worked out. So there's a big chasm that has to be bridged here at the end.
Where do you sit? I know there's a lot of discussion about, whether it's time to invest in education. And then there's others who believe that, yes, you can put money into certain things, but make sure it's one-time funding because you might not have this type of surplus again. I mean, where do you sit, Senator Eakin?
Yeah, I believe there needs to be a mix, and which is, I think, what ultimately happens in the end because of compromise. But I do think, and both sides have tax relief, for instance. I think it's a matter of where you put the tax relief. The Senate Republican plan significantly reduces the first tier of the income tax, which basically eats up the lion's share, the most of that surplus. And I'm more inclined to support a more balanced approach that, has some tax relief. I think it should be significant since we have a significant surplus, but I think it should be focused on property taxes. And that is what the House Democrats focus their surplus funding for tax relief on property taxes because they are the most regressive tax. They do hit greater Minnesota, rural Minnesota much harder than other areas of the state. They do hit middle income and lower income folks and also smaller businesses and farms the hardest. So that's why I think we need to focus there on tax relief. But we also need to make investments in education. We need to make investments in our long-term care and health care, especially during this time of crisis when we have such short staffing for our nursing homes and our hospitals. And again, the House Democrat plan does put more into that and a significant amount into education, too. A big portion of it goes towards paying off what they call the cross-subsidy, and that's funding for special education, which the schools are required to provide all these services, but are not getting reimbursed for those things that they've been required to do. And so I think helping out our schools, helping out our hospitals, helping out our nursing homes has to be a part of that mix as well as we go into the final weeks here.
You bet. Senator Eakin, I know we'll get more updates from you as we do go through these final weeks. But when this is all done, I'd really like you, since this is, going into your last legislative session, I'd really like you to just come in and talk in general about the process and your time in office, if you'd agree to do that.
Oh, you bet. I'd be glad to, Joel.
Yep. Senator Kent Eakin, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you, sir.
You bet. Thank you.
When we come back, well, we got a grill to give away. Tyler Axness, Jack Michaels, and the strawberry picking Abby Miller. Right after the. Oh, and by the way, it was Megan's horse that cheated in the Derby. Yeah, it was. It was Megan's. Thank you to that text call messenger.
Nobody was watching you throw that bullseye. Like they'd already capitulated. They were just done.
Because the
they
game
knew it
was already over.
You needed a bullseye to close it out.
Yeah, we needed the bullseye.
You went middle, Joel.
Yeah.
You didn't just hit a bullseye. I mean, you were.
No, but Tyler, we needed that bullseye.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah, I was there. I remember.
pigeons could have landed on your lip. You were pouting so bad.
I'm just glad you boys were buying the rest of the night. Anyway.
That was so. That was one of the biggest wins of our lives.
What's going on at Bar 9?
Bar 9.
This biggest wins of our life.
Yeah, that is.
Bigger.
Now you've got the passport.
Right.
So you've got number one passport.
That's right. That's
number
one.
2 beating me in
Then
darts.
the 87-91 Twins.
Oh, the Traeger.
Those four things. Traeger Grill.
Traeger Grill. That's what you asked me for.
And then I have a question for Joel.
Guys, I'm just the host. I'm going to sit back.
It's your show,
Talk
Joel.
amongst
But
yourselves.
I've got a question for you after this. Because I'm eating banana bread and it smells like something. But go ahead.
Bar 9, Traeger giveaway. We did this last year. Had a great time. We figured it was such a fun party. We're going to do it again. Barnesville Grocery, though, we've been doing a meat raffle, and every Thursday we've got Spencer Worth the Meat Dude on. So today, any meat-related questions, you can send those in. We'll ask them.
I love that segment, by the way.
It's
a great segment.
The guy is so analytic about things.
About meat.
Yeah. Scientific.
Right.
But
Actually, though, every time I listen, I learn something.
You learn something, yes.
There's 2 types of gambling that you'll find me doing. If I go up to your bar and grill, if you got bingo going,
you're there.
I'm buying a dauber. You got a meat raffle, I'm buying one of them raffle tickets. So we figured, why not bring that to the airwaves here of KFGO? 2 traditions: meat raffles, KFGO,
and bingo.
And It Takes Two Afternoons Live. We've been doing a drawing every week, Tuesdays on It Takes Two. The last one is today on Afternoons Live. So be listening at 2:00. If you haven't registered yet, you still have like 2 hours to do so. Text MEAT, MEAT, to 35270.
Jack, they had over 6 people register already.
Yeah, just a couple of dozen people.
I mean, they've got hundreds of people registered.
You've always said,
this
Joel,
thing has kind of taken off.
You've always told me people like meat.
People.
You guys are at a meat raffle. You get your number called. You go up to that table. What are you grabbing? What are you going home with?
It's the golden. It's like the Willy Wonka of
aside
meat.
from saying the most expensive cut. I mean, what's in your mind when you go up there? You're saying, God, I hope they have this.
Yeah,
well, in Matador at the meat raffle at every VFW meeting, there was a ham, there was a bacon, and the bacon's long. I mean, it's not cut. Not cut. You got to cut it, and then there was turkey. And so you got a turkey, a ham, or and then I was one of the ones that was always doing the raffle and selling tickets years ago. And it's like, and you'd just be shocked, with all due respect to you turkey farmers out there, when they chose a turkey. And there was
that would be my third option.
Yeah.
Of the 3 that you just said. Yes.
Right. And I'm with you on that. The ham was the big prize, because the hams were as big as your head. I mean, they were really big, and the bacons were definitely the choice.
So what do we do?
Well, okay, let me tell the story though, so I don't get in trouble with you. So there was
Go on.
There's an old, I think he's Polish, but this guy. What nationality would you be if your last name was
Joel
Nedovitsky? What? I'm not going to get in trouble. Anyway,
probably from the Polish
region.
So
he comes up to the counter with one of those old Vietnam vets, and he says, "Hey, you want a ticket for a ham?" He says, "Well, how big are those hams?" And the guy looks up, "As big as your head." And so it stuck.
Okay.
It stuck. But yes.
So today
we got this.
I do have a question.
Do you guys do this every day from 8 to 9?
It's random. It's
How do you
listening.
get to the end of this?
It gets a little
tough.
loose.
I know you'll have more, but who made this?
the banana bread?
Yeah.
Gwen, my
So
roommate.
here's my question for you, Joel, you, Tyler, and you, Abby Rose.
You could grill it.
I put butter on it, and it's fantastic. But as I smell it, it smells like foot sweat.
Ew.
So I'm asking, it's phenomenal. I'm going to finish it. It's
Are
great.
we okay? Well, Tyler, you're closest to the butter and the bread. Can you smell both of them? I'm guessing it's the
not.
butter.
A little like
this
it's
isn't one of
got
those.
foot sweat.
This smells terrible. Here, smell it.
It
I'm
smells
not
like
going for that.
Be a team
smells
player.
like foot sweat, but it tastes remarkable. So my question
I think
to you,
it's the
Joel,
butter.
Joel,
I'm guessing it's whatever was in the container before the butter
Joel's
was
my
melted
go-to
in
guy
it.
for food. Three food items that smell horrendous but taste terrific.
Well,
Deviled eggs.
yeah, I would put deviled eggs in as one of them. They don't
3
smell
food
good.
items that smell
The butter
bad.
kind of has like a buttery smell, but there's also like a weird smell.
It is.
I don't like the smell of olives, but I'll eat
Really?
them. Oh yeah.
But taste okay.
Right. They taste okay.
Tyler, what smells bad tastes great.
I put sauerkraut down. I'm not
and I'm not a sauerkraut guy. I want to be. I've tried, and I just can't get there.
Yeah.
I don't know, Jack.
But you know what would make that?
You know what would smell really good? Putting a slab of meat on this grill back here. Let's get that.
I was trying to bring it back.
I'm sorry, I thought
You throw a rack of pork ribs on there, and you season that bad boy up.
Put that banana bread on there.
It'll smell good.
Did we grill some of this
Okay.
banana
I'm going to be a
bread?
host now. Everybody.
I'm sorry.
Here we go.
Yum.
Tyler, what's going on tonight?
Tyler, who built that grill?
Is that a safe on the side?
Okay, let's use this as an opportunity to get this disclaimer out. The couple of news and views, so Joel Heitkamp, Abby Miller, physically constructed this grill. It is complete, but that's your warning.
We put it together.
Warranty is 237-5948 from
It's
8
Becky
to 11
upstairs.
is when you call in if anything's wrong. And if you win, 6 o'clock is registration, bar 9. We're going to be over there right after Afternoons Live. And we're going to be doing the drawing at 7:30.
So they can still register.
You
at
can
the
still
bar.
come on over, grab a cold one. Timberwolves are going to be playing tonight as well, so you can watch that while you're actually in the running here. So
If you go to bar 10, you've gone too far?
Yeah, you've gone about 3 blocks too far.
Okay.
At that
Bar
point.
8, not far enough.
Bar 8, not far enough. What's the little piece on the end here? Is
That's where the
air?
moisture goes out from the smoke. So say
That's the smokestack.
Say that
one is.
the bird, the turkey, drips, right? It gets down there. There's where it goes.
Do you put a bucket there?
Yeah, there's a bucket inside it that goes
Would
there.
you smoke a turkey?
Oh, yeah.
What do you do? Is it a spatchcock or whatever? Where you cut it and you...
Time out. What was that?
I don't think we... it's family-friendly show.
Now you're just making stuff up.
You be listening to the meat dude.
I've lost control.
Spencer worked the meat dude 240 today.
You have every tool in the book. I don't think you got one of those.
Spatchcock.
Is that how you keep your windows closed so the air doesn't get in? You use that?
At this age, you just hope it works.
Phone lines are open.
Yep. File your grievances, 237.
Tyler's such a handy
I'm
guy that
excluding myself. I'm out. I'm tapped out.
Is that who wrote The Birds? Alfred Spatchcock? Sorry, it's the banana bread. Tastes like foot sweat.
What's in this? Yesterday was a holiday for some people.
Did you say bar 9, Joel? Okay.
Tyler, where should I be and when should I be there?
Bar 9, 6 o'clock.
What are you giving away?
Traeger Grill.
Oh, yeah.
Ooh, but listen to Audibles.
Audibles today, 4 o'clock. It's all going to go down today.
Abby, you can't do worse than the other news and views member that was on last week.
Tyler, it's all been going down since this morning.
I never got one wrong last week.
You didn't get any. You didn't even guess.
I know, that's what made it good. All
right.
right.
Joel, your show, Joel.
Tyler,
you're welcome.
Reel it back in.
Your show, Joel. Now.
Take it away. 20 seconds left.
When we come back, Chet Pollert's going to join us. He is the new head of legislative management. He's the chair. Why? Because Ray Holmberg resigned his seat. Why? Well, we're going to talk to Chet about that. Stick around. This Thursday, Congressman Kelly Armstrong is going to join us in a little bit. We'll get a chance to get an update on where he sees Russia. Obviously, we're going to talk about immigration, one of those issues that really came at us strong yesterday. Oil, where are we at when it comes to oil development in our country. And I don't know if you saw this, but they had some guys parachute into, I think it's RFK Stadium, or anywhere where the Nats play. And they weren't supposed to be there. They ended up, evacuating the Capitol. Of course, a lot of different things have gone on, so they're a little jumpy there, to say the least. But we'll talk to Kelly about that. I don't know. He might be back in state, but it'll be interesting to get his take on it. Yesterday, word got out that Ray Holmberg, longest serving state senator, here in North Dakota, chairman of the Senate Appropriations Committee, chairman of Legislative Management. Ray is one of the most powerful legislators, period. Well, word got out that Ray had been texting with an individual that was in jail under federal indictment and an investigation going on. And Ray was texting him over 70 times. And I just want to point out that the Forum did a good job, and I want to give them credit. Hopefully they'll learn that it goes both ways. But I want to give them credit to the fact that, hey, they did some good reporting on this, and people found out that Ray was texting this individual. Now, why? I think we're all yet to determine. There's a lot of speculation, not the least of which is from us as former legislators, and I can speak to that a little bit later. But the man who's in the middle on all this and had to deal with it is Chet Pollert. Now, Chet was vice chair of legislative management, and now he's chairman of legislative management, and that's because Ray resigned. Chet, good to have you on News and Views.
Morning, Joel. How are you?
I want to make sure I get this right. In your tenure as a majority leader, the most powerful position you can have in North Dakota's House, you've had to expel a member, and now you've had to deal with the resignation of head of legislative management. Did you ever think the job was going to be this easy, Chet?
Well, I think I've been a curse on John Bjornson at the Legislative Council because it seems like everything is anything that comes besides COVID-19, all the ARPA dollars, and the special session, and some of that too comes from. I was chair of legislative management for a couple of years, back a year and a half ago. So, I've got a little experience at it. So it just kind of made sense to move forward in that chair. So
did you and Rich Wardner, the majority leader in the North Dakota Senate, did you call for Ray Holmberg to resign? Did you ask him to step down? We
had spoken to Ray. I had spoken to him individually, and also I'm sure Senator Wardner did as well. And we had said that he needed to be thinking of that. We did not force him into that, but we thought it was important for him to have that for consideration so that we felt it was the appropriate thing to do. And so we had those discussions for a couple of days.
So were you making, or you and Senator Wardner, were you taking any steps on how you would deal with this if he hadn't stepped aside, if he hadn't resigned?
Of course, there were discussions about that, Joel. But we didn't need to come to that because Senator Holmberg had, I feel, made the right decision to step down from legislative management.
Was there any conversation?
Not from, let me correct that, from the chairmanship of legislative management.
Well, that's what the next question I was going to send at you, Leader Pollert, which was there any conversation about whether or not Ray Holmberg should resign from legislative management?
Joel, from my perspective, that's not a discussion I can have. I mean, I can have it now as chairman of legislative management, but I think those are discussions that Senator Wardner, as Senate Majority Leader, and the Senate themselves, Senator Heitkamp, and those involved, because when you get elected to legislative management, as you know, it's from the position the Senate elects theirs, the House elects theirs. So now that would be in the ballpark of what the Senate would need to address if they feel it needs to be addressed. And right now, I don't know if that's an appropriate decision to make right now.
And that's fair, Chet, that's fair. But let me ask it to you in a different way then. As chair of legislative management, what role do you think you'll be using Ray Holmberg in?
You know, Joel, right now, legislative management is not going to meet much because the interim committee structures, all the meetings are going on right now. Those were assigned when Senator Holmberg became chair. He was responsible with some other folks to name the chairman and vice chairman. Those interim committee meetings are going on. And truthfully, the only scheduled meeting for legislative management is in November. I won't have the dates correct, somewhere around the 15th, where we receive all the legislative management studies. And then those who've gotten elected in the November general election will elect their accordingly chambers leadership positions. So right now, that's the only schedule, unless we feel we need to be in a special session. And that hasn't even been discussed yet. And there doesn't need to be a discussion of a special session as of that I'm talking to you today.
Are you or have you been in contact with law enforcement about Senator Holmberg?
Nobody has called me about that at all. No.
Okay.
No, I've had conversations, of course, with Senator Holmberg. I've had conversations, of course, with Senator Wardner and with the head of Legislative Council, John Bjornson.
Okay. Can you share with us what Senator Holmberg said? He issued a statement. He said there'll be no further discussion on the matter. There's been a lot of different media that have tried to call him about the text messages and the ongoing investigation. And, and the reason I think it's a fair question to ask Majority Leader Pollert, or I'll call you Chairman Pollert now. And I know you're going to want me just to call you Chet.
Joel, but that's okay.
But we've known each other a long time. I realize that. But, to me, he's still on the payroll. I mean, he's still there. And so the information, if not something he wants to share with the public, sharing with the leaders that can make a determination whether or not he should be on the payroll is a big part of this. And of course, you went through these tough times with Luke Simons, and if these allegations and if these problems are in any way, shape, or form true, I think I could make an argument that this stands up equal to that, if not worse. And
Joel, I would agree. When I had the discussions, and I had a couple of them with Senator Holmberg, it was talked about. I have no idea what's been filed, and he has said that's between him and his attorney. I understand that. When that information comes forward, then we have to act appropriately. I think Senator Wardner said it correctly yesterday. If something comes forward, I think he was quoted in the papers as saying he would act quickly, because the chairmanship of Senate Appropriations is determined by that appropriate chamber's majority leader. And I think they're not ready to do that yet. I can't speak for them because there's been no charges yet. There's all this information gathering, and they're looking. I don't know what they're looking at. Nobody's contacted me. And so we have to see how that goes. But I think the senators will decide how they want to do that. But again, I've been through this. And I'll say one thing about Senator Wardner. When I had to go through what we did in the House, and I, of course, being House Majority Leader, had to spearhead that thing, the Senate did not get involved in that whatsoever. None whatsoever. I feel I myself have to also reside by that point as well, because it's a Senate matter. Yes, I'm chair of legislative management, But at the same time, until something further comes forward, then we act accordingly again. But mainly, it's going to be more of a Senate thing.
Let me take an angle of this at you. Let me ask it this way. You have long been a champion for the legislative branch of government and the people understanding it, advocating for it, wanting to run for it, and the last one here is respecting it. And so are you fearful at all of what the perception is going to be of legislative management, knowing that this cloud is hanging over it, and in that room as you make your decisions and go forth is going to be Ray Holmberg, and the only thing he did in regards to legislative management was step aside as chair. He's still going to be there when these decisions are made. He's still going to be representative of his opinions as it goes forward. Are you concerned at all of what, because of that, the perception of the legislative branch is going to be?
Yeah, Joel, I am always concerned about the institutionality. I think I brought that up when I said I wasn't going to run for re-election again. I'm always concerned about that. We're in a society where judgment is quick. We are in a society where you've got social media makes accusations so quick. Now, the last time I checked, and I know I'm far from an attorney, but we're supposed to be a society of innocent until proven guilty. Now, once, if I'm correct, the feds are looking this, if they bring something forward, I am hoping that the institution itself, that we would act quickly, and I believe we will. But this all takes a discovery phase. It really does. And so you've got to make sure it's done appropriately, and that's how we have to do it. I mean, some people say the wheels turn slowly, but they have to be, I feel, done correctly. And that's what we are going to do.
Chet,
and so if things happen going forward, then that's what we'll have to look at.
That, ladies and gentlemen, is incredibly fair. I totally respect your answer. Thank you, Leader Pollert. I appreciate you coming on and speaking to this.
Thank you, Joel.
You bet. Chet Pollert, ladies and gentlemen. Let's head to the weather cave and get to Too Tall Tom and get his forecast for you. Here saying, why are you avoiding the Ukrainian conversation? No, we're not avoiding it. We'll get to that a little bit later. That comes from, only family can do this. I have an elderly, well, it's a woman, so I won't give age, right? You told me not to do that, Abby.
Yeah, no, don't do that.
There. But we'll get to that a little bit later. I want to explain legislative management to you. If you have a bill that goes into the legislature and it is deemed worthy of conversation but not worthy of becoming a law, it's turned into a study. Now, politics has played with that too. I mean, understand that. It's like, well, we don't want to kill this because it'll make us look bad, so let's just turn it into a study, and then we'll never pick up the study because not every bill that's turned into a study gets studied by legislative management or gets a hearing later on. But that's what happens. These bills are recommended and sent by vote to the legislative management, and then legislative management picks through them, chooses which ones. So it's an incredibly powerful tool. And I made the mistake one time of saying that not a high percentage pass out of legislative management. That's not true. In fact, earlier they mentioned a gentleman by the name of John Bjornson who heads up legislative council right now, a fabulous attorney. And I wish I knew John's politics because that's what he's brilliant at. He doesn't play politics with that job. But he told me, he said, Joel, that's not accurate. A high percentage of these bills end up becoming laws in another legislative session. So my point is it's important. And you break it down into committees. My committee dealt with Native American issues, and I took my committee out to the tribes, and we had conversations, we had hearings, and I'm proud of the work we did, and we did pass laws because of that. That being said, Ray Holmberg is going to be part of that process. Now, I would argue that until this all gets sorted out, until those text messages are figured out, a man that threw away his phone, right? A man that was found to be texting a pedophile over 70 times. And where Chet is spot on right is that, look, there's a discovery process. He's not guilty. There's a system here. Agreed. Totally agreed. But the product, if he realizes he should resign as chair of legislative management, part of that conversation has to be how it affects legislation going forward from legislative management. And I'm not saying he should resign from that. In fact, I think I was the first person that said he needs to give up the chairmanship. My guess is, as far as legislative management goes, when it comes to committee, when it comes to anything else, you're not going to see him anyway. He's just not going to be that high a profile. So I respect what Chet said. But there is more coming on this story. And you don't have to be Dick Tracy to figure that one out. There's more coming. I don't know what it is. I have no idea. I don't have any insight. But the one thing my gut, my radar, my barometer tell me is that there's more coming. And it also tells me that it's not good. When we come back, Congressman Kelly Armstrong. News and Views Radio Network. North Dakota's lone Congressman Kelly Armstrong joins us right now. Congressman Armstrong, good to have you on News and Views.
Thanks for having me.
Where do we find you? Where are you at? Are you in D.C.?
I am in Fargo. Actually, we're doing. I'm running between two different meetings, and I looked at my chief of staff and I said, "Why aren't we doing this in studio?" And she's like, "Because we couldn't make the schedule work."
Okay, well, either way, we got you. So I do appreciate that. Well, you didn't. The reason I asked that was so to find out if you got evacuated from the Capitol yesterday.
Oh man, I mean, what a silly, stupid, dumb kind of referendum on that town right now.
Exactly. Doesn't it kind of say a lot? You know, in this dysfunctional government that we have, that people don't even know that parachutists are going to be coming down and the Capitol Police, they end up evacuating the Capitol. I mean, this is bizarre.
And listen, outside of everything else, I mean, the two things you don't want to deal with right now are low-flying planes in D.C. and not knowing why they're there. And listen, I'm not critical of the Capitol Police officers. Those guys are awesome. I talk to them every day. They're some of my favorite people in D.C. But I've been pretty critical of Capitol Police leadership for a lot of different reasons. But I actually don't. My guess is this is probably not their fault. Somebody didn't tell them.
No, and my guess is somebody's in really big trouble.
Yeah,
my guess as well. Congressman.
So I've known Speaker Pelosi. I've watched her. I could read her anger in her statement. like say whatever you want about her. You could just read the anger in her statement.
I was standing right next to her one time when she was quite upset, and the person that she went and spoke to about that got the point very quickly and reacted. And how do I put this in a way that I can on radio? Anyway, you know exactly what I'm getting at. So, Congressman, I want to talk to you a little bit about what's going on. First off, let's begin with Ukraine. Are we, as Americans, doing enough to support the Ukrainian people?
You know, that's always such a tough question. I think, I think we need to do everything we absolutely can. I think, we're 40,000 rounds of munitions, another $800 million dollars are going. It sounds like we have really streamlined how those things can get over there. So I think we're doing a lot. I think we need to continue to do more. I think we need to start talking about real conversations about, not just for the Ukraine, but for the rest of the world. What are we going to do if we can't get grain out of Odessa coming up in the next couple months? Because that's a real problem.
Let me ask it this way. What's your red line? What is that line that after this, Congressman Kelly Armstrong says, look, we no longer can avoid having troops involved in this? Is it chemical warfare? What is it that would make you say that's it, that's enough?
Well, I think the first and easy one that outside of this is, if another NATO country is attacked, that's part of our treaty. We have to honor that. That is just simply true. But Joel, the answer is there's not a lot of decisions you make in this job that don't involve nuance, and the ones you do usually involve body bags of American soldiers. And so it's a really tough. It'd be hard-pressed for me to want to send American troops into there outside of very strict things. Now, if chemical warfare is used and stuff, we have to have serious conversations about what that looks like in moving forward.
Okay, because for many, that's already happened. Yeah. There's a belief that it already happened, and then, of course, you've got people held up. You've got, them. I don't know what Ukraine can do more that would justify it other than, Russia could do more that would justify it. And so my point is this: I agree with you that we should help any way we can now. But I have to tell you, Congressman, that when those pictures keep coming back, people are getting more and more, not emotional, but more upset. And
yes, absolutely. And the one answer is I think, which unfortunately hasn't been the case for a long time. Before any of that happens, there has to be a vote in Congress. There has to be.
Yes.
This cannot
absolutely
be a decision that one man makes alone. And and that it wouldn't matter if it was President Trump or President Biden.
That is the one thing that I really respected about the Bush administration, Bush 2, was the fact that they put that to a vote, and then people got to say whether or not they did or not, and they were on record.
But my concern more along the lines of some of that, though, is right. There's a lot of different escalating things that we can do, both good and bad, that put us in a position that is, that we have to be acknowledged for. This isn't a matter of, we don't have to send the Marines in for this thing to escalate into something that gets us really close to World War III.
Yeah. Congressman, I want to talk about oil a little bit. You've been very vocal about the administration and what they're doing to hinder oil production. Both you and I served in the North Dakota legislature, so we know where to get the stats. We know where to get what's publicly filed. And the stats that I'm looking at show numbers that are up drastically from where we're at before. And so I guess call it a softball, call it a tough ball. I don't care. I'm trying to figure out where you're coming from when you say that we're hindering oil production on my side of the aisle.
Well, they absolutely are. I mean, the pipeline, the infrastructure into place, and now this isn't counting a blizzard, which really hindered oil production over the last week and a half.
Yeah, no, that's fair.
Right. To say that your numbers are coming up over the 2020 and 21 year are factually, that's a very small microcosm of what was going on when worldwide oil demand went down because of the pandemic. There's absolutely been a concerted effort to stop and delay oil production and infrastructure production in North Dakota and across the country since this administration was on.
Yeah, and please speak into your phone there if you wouldn't mind. You're kind of fading out. But I'm sitting here looking at wells producing in 2021. The number goes to over 16,000 consistently going back. And I'm not talking COVID years now. I'm talking back prior to that. I can't get to the 16,000s. So my point is this. We've got more oil wells producing in the Biden administration than we've ever had before here in the state of North Dakota. I disagreed with him on some of what happened with public lands. Now he's opened that up. And granted, he's charging more for it. He's charging 18.75% versus the 12.5%. But to that, I say good. And so I guess, and it's also been good for ethanol.
By the way, I don't particularly have a problem with that either. I've always said if you want to renegotiate the terms of federal leases, then that's the position you want to take. You'll find out if the market can bear it. I don't have any problem. But
here's
the problem is not having any oil lease sales at all.
Here's the big question. The oil industry is doing very well. And I know your family, and I'm not trying to personalize this with you, but has your income gone up? Has your family done a lot better during all of this with the record oil prices?
You know what? Some of my revenue checks are up, but I haven't even looked at whether or not we're actually producing more oil or less oil. I spent most of my time dealing with being a member of Congress.
No, but
yes, when the WTI price is $100 oil versus $36 oil, you make more money. That's the way the industry works.
No, I know that. But members of Congress and others are sitting there saying that you're hindering, while in many cases they're making record profits. Certainly the oil industry is.
Well, yeah, you make profit when oil prices go up, Joel. That's the way it works. What you're not seeing is a real investment into more production and more drilling, which is typically what you end up seeing when oil prices go to this spike. And there's a lot of different reasons for it. But one of the reasons, particularly in North Dakota, is because we can't get infrastructure in the ground.
You're saying that as though it's economics 101 and I don't understand it. So let me throw this at you. You've got more oil wells producing than ever before. You've got the money to invest in it. You've got permits that you haven't utilized. Why aren't they putting wells in the ground? Why is it because they've got record profits and they don't need to because the spin they could put out there is it's not their fault?
No, they're not putting oil wells in the ground because they don't think that there's nothing signaling in the market that everything in any way, shape, or form in this is going to continue to moving forward after they're doing it. When every signal you get from an administration is we want to tax your industry, we do not want to put infrastructure in the ground, we'll cancel permits, we won't give permits, we'll do all of those things, and you are the geographic center of North America, It's very hard to invest in that and deal with that knowing going forward that you have no ability to capture your gas or transport your products to market.
Congressman, that was happening long before this. That was happening even under the Trump administration, because the truth of the matter was we were investing more in renewables in that administration. We were incentivizing it. And I would add one other thing. The industries themselves have gone away from it. I mean, my Ford F-150 pickup 10 years from now that I might buy is going to be electric. And that isn't being determined by an administration. It's being determined by an industry that sees that's where the world is going.
I'm not, I don't think in 10 years you'll see electric Ford F-150s running around the oil patch. I just don't believe that.
No. I'm talking about around the United States, around the world.
Yeah, two things can be true at once. We can drive more electric vehicles, and we can need more oil and natural gas production. I think both of those things will be true in 10 years. I think the world will consume more oil and natural gas in 10 years than it does right now, provided, and I hope that the North Dakota and the United States are a big part of that instead of relying on our strategic adversaries in the world to provide that energy.
So then, as somebody who understands the industry and can benefit from a strong industry, we've established that. Let me ask why, if we've got double the price for natural gas, why we're still letting it get burnt off if we're so desperate for energy?
Well, that's one of the questions we were going to ask. I mean, if you're talking about oil production, we can't really ramp up oil production until we have more gas capture facilities in place in North Dakota. But I mean, North Dakota has done a really good job actually of investing in gas infrastructure and continuing to deal with flaring. And by the way, these problems these problems exist all the way across the infrastructure. There's not a ton of places to onboard LNG in Europe. There are not a lot of tankers that you can actually ship this stuff. There's long-term systemic problems that have to be addressed if the U.S. and North Dakota are going to provide energy to the world.
But what was thrown at you, and it was thrown at I as well, was that we can't make a profit doing it. And the point is they can make a profit doing it, and not the least of which producing oil wells where they have permits to do it, where they can pay for the infrastructure rapidly because of the record oil prices. I mean, but
you can't pay for infrastructure rapidly. The vast majority of the gas infrastructure that was put in place is when gas was at $1.20 MCF. And that's the infrastructure we need to move the gas right now, and we got to continue to put gas infrastructure in place. But, I mean, between permitting delays and investment delays and signals from the market, it's hard to raise capital for these projects right now, and it's going to continue to be unless something changes.
Where do the profits go? If it's so hard to raise capital, where does all of that profit go that they can't reinvest in their own industry?
Well, but this is the fundamental thing. The industry is not monolithic. This is one of the most insane things I've seen the Democrats do. They called in a bunch of oil and gas companies to talk about gouging of gasoline prices at the pump, and two of them didn't even refine product. I mean, the monolithic side of this is they don't all build their own infrastructure. There's upstream, there's downstream, there's pipeline companies, which take almost a decade to get in the ground, and without those pipe and that infrastructure, you can't move your product. So that's how people on the ground make decisions.
No, I understand that, and you understand that, and there's many people in Congress that need to understand that. What I don't get is how everybody can talk about a shortage of oil post-COVID when the world just broke out as though it's an administration's fault, when in fact the industry itself is setting record profits, and they're not utilizing permits or even wells that they've capped. I just have no sympathy for someone saying, you're making my life hell and I'm making record profits while you do it. I don't get it. I just don't.
Well, I mean, there's a lot of different factors in this. First of all, when you swing, I mean, we talk about that, but remember 18 months ago, oil traded at negative $26 a barrel WTI. I mean, when you have those drastic swings that move, what you end up losing is your world cushion. It's even like when you're releasing the strategic oil reserves. I mean, if they're serious about doing that, then they need to get the worldwide reserves, not just Americans' 80 million barrels, but everybody to do it, because otherwise all you're going to have to do is you're not going to actually affect prices, and you're going to have to refill the strategic oil reserves at $100 oil when it was refilled before at $35 oil. That doesn't make any sense.
Well, the strategic oil reserves was just basically it didn't do anything.
No.
I said that on air. I said that, it's just kind of feel good, send a signal, the government understands it. I get it. I understand it. What I'm trying to get at is a more serious issue of, look, this is what separates you and I, Congressman. I have no sympathy for an industry with record profits, the ability to invest itself because it's got the permits to do it, saying we're being hindered to invest in ourselves when nobody showed me any evidence whatsoever that they have.
Well, I'm just telling you that every single person I talk to in this industry will tell you, particularly small oil and gas companies and not big oil and gas companies that are doing offshore rigs, that have a very hard time raising capital and have a hard time justifying drilling 19 more wells when they don't have the gas infrastructure and they're going to get capped.
Okay. Well, you trust them better than I do. The record profits alone tell me they're doing just fine. I got one quick question for you before I know you got to go to your meeting. Does he know anything new about Kurt Grohan's last word earlier this month was he moved away from Kyiv to a new facility. Do you know anything about that farmer?
We continue to keep trying to monitor it, but it is really chaotic over there. We're trying to figure out everything we can, but no, we don't right now.
Okay, so we don't know how Kurt is doing and whether we're going to get him home.
Not anything that I am comfortable sharing.
Oh, that's fair. That's fair. Yeah. We'll see you out in D.C. on the honor flight. Appreciate it.
Absolutely.
Yep. Congressman Kelly Armstrong, ladies and gentlemen. You hear that? He wasn't afraid to come on and have a good-spirited discussion. Maybe someone should get that word to a United States senator that almost lost his nomination from his own party. All right, we'll be back with more right after this. some of what we talked about in my conversation with Congressman Armstrong. Somebody said, Joel, North Dakota has done a terrible job of capturing gas from the oil wells. They're right. They are absolutely right about that. Joel, was good to hear the congressman pretty much admit he has no clue about the oil industry, but knows he's making more money. Another one. Sounds like the good congressman is beholden to big oil and the continuation of environmental destruction. From what I've heard, he seems to be more of a yes man and a puppet than a man of the people. Joel, it's about investment with the oil industry. It's a private investment, not like rural water systems built by the federal government. See, that was the separation between Kelly and I, which is I believe the oil industry is doing just fine. Now, for you farmers out there, be careful that you're not hypocrites about this, right? You can't sit there and listen to that interview and say, see, the oil industry is being picked on. They should be able to do all this, while at the same time you're saying expand ethanol, because that's another reason there's going to be less oil in the market. So which one is it with you? He is a judge on The Masked Singer, which I can tell you this. If you go to my television system and you click on it, you're not going to see me recording or making sure that I have the ability to watch The Masked Singer again. Abby, have you ever watched it?
I honestly haven't. I've watched like clips on Twitter or something, but I haven't actually watched the show. I'm not really interested in it.
Yeah. Well,
do you know the premise?
I've actually seen it.
Have you?
Yeah, I've seen it, and I don't know how you could tell by their voice.
I mean, like for those that haven't seen it or heard of it, it's just I think anyway, it's just they have people wear these big costumes and masks, and then
they sing.
They sing, and
you're supposed to guess who they are.
Yeah, I don't know how they get voted on to the next week, but eventually you figure out who all of them are.
Yeah. And here's the thing. I've watched it once, and I found it so completely unentertaining that I didn't let it take any more of my life away from me. Yeah. But they achieved their goal. You and I, on a region-wide, multi-state radio program, are talking about it. And
we both saw it on Twitter this morning.
And it exploded on social media. Now, why? Because Rudy Giuliani was one of the masked singers. And quite frankly, he could not have been worse.
I haven't listened to him.
It was bad. And if I was George Thorogood, I'd sue them.
And didn't he sing Bad to the Bone?
Exactly. Yep. And anyway, Yikes. Ken Jeong is you might know his work through the movie Hangover. He was the one that was in the trunk.
He was Mr. Chow.
Yeah, and he was really he's a very good actor. Anyway, he's one of the individuals that is there to judge what's going on and who potentially is the singer. And he just walked off last night. Now, the only way that this isn't a stint, it obviously the producers made it a stint, but the only way that Ken Jeong, that this wasn't clearly a planned stint for him walking off and saying, I don't want to reinvent this individual's image. I don't want to allow him to come on and act as though he wasn't involved in trying to overthrow a democracy, any of that. Is if he truly quits the show. Right? I mean, walking off and being mad because the people you work for did something that got the response from the nation that it did, from 60% of the nation, 65% of the nation realizes that Rudy Giuliani is not a good person. And that brings even in the people that were in the middle of all of this, individuals who might have voted for Donald Trump, who are smart enough to realize that Rudy Giuliani is less than honorable. But this is an opportunity, if you're Giuliani, to reinvent yourself, to try to go back out and be a personality that America would say, oh, what a good sport, and he dressed up like an idiot. If I'm the producer of the show, there's a lot of ways that you can get, the people that are high profile and would maybe make some news, but there's no way I would have done this. There's no way I would have done this. And so I'm curious what you think. I know that many of you disagree with me. I know it, but I just somebody said Ken Jeong left a career as a medical doctor to go into acting. I didn't know that. Did you know that?
Yeah, I did. I heard that. He's insanely smart, but he was a doctor and left for acting, and he's done really well.
Okay. I didn't know that.
I don't know what kind of doctor, but yeah, he was in the medical field.
Okay. I want to go back to the situation with Senator Holmberg. And for those of you that would think that his resignation as head of legislative management should end this, right? He's paid a price now. There is going to be more to come. There is. And while I know that many of you out there think that, hey, the one thing that you would do is hire a good lawyer, and the hiring of Mark Freese, who is a very good lawyer from the Vogel Law Firm, is in any way, shape, or form an indication, or not an indication, I should say, that there's trouble coming because of the fact that, hey, Get yourself a lawyer. Get yourself the best lawyer you can and make sure your back's covered. That type of thing. Well, I see it the other way. I see it as, I am in trouble. And before they really take me to the woodshed here, before I get charged with this, that, or the other thing, I need to make sure that my lawyer tells me what to say and what to do. So I know that there was an editorial written by the very paper that broke the story, and they pulled it down. They pulled the editorial down for some reason, and later on put it back up. Now, I don't know if it's in exact same form as what it was before, but it was the Fargo Forum that put an editorial out there that basically kept, the pressure on Senator Holmberg to say, where's the text messages? What are they? Now, our news department, has made a request because those text messages, once someone is in jail, they're an open record. They are. Unless they're part of an investigation. Now, in this particular case, they apparently are part of a federal investigation. And so what investigation would involve Ray Holmberg? How would that go back to Ray Holmberg? And you could say, well, no, it's the individual that he's texting sitting in jail, and anything pertaining to him we're going to use and utilize as we build our case. I think that the state has a bigger responsibility to the people of the state when it comes to this from the legislative side. I was very glad to hear what Chet Pollert had to say, that he was protecting the institution of the legislature. The legislature doesn't have a consistent voice. And by that, I mean that they go into session every 2 years for 4 months, right? And so there is media there. The media puts the mic in front of your face. You get a chance to be heard. You get a chance to weigh. You get a chance to hear from certain legislators. Some of the legislators like Jason Heitkamp are idiots. Some of the ones like Chet Pollert are incredibly intelligent and public servants. So that the Ole Larsons probably should quit. It sounds like he's going to quit because the people don't respect him anymore. So that's the check and the balance, right? The bills you introduce, the words you say, but it doesn't take away from the process of legislating. There is no one closer to the people than the legislative branch of government, even though they don't have the ability to make news unless it's usually bad news, like this with Ray Holmberg. So protecting the overall legislature from the ability to be perceived as a bunch of kooks and wackos and perverts and everything else that go with it is very, very important to me. Having served in it for 14 years, it's very, very important to me. You can laugh, you can joke, you can make fun, you can have camaraderie, you can do all of that when you're there. And I did. I had all kinds of fun, but it's serious work, and doing that serious work matters. And so having the legislature step up and tell a Luke Simons, you got to go. You can't be one of us. This is not tolerable. I think said a lot about Republican leadership in the North Dakota House. Now, one could argue that Chet Pollert paid for that with his career and with his leadership, that the Bastiat caucus was going to come after him and make his life, all kinds of – he didn't have the ability to lead anymore. Or some might argue, you know what? He served his time. Chet was there for a long time. And he said, I get to have a life outside of that. I don't know. What I do know is this: protecting that branch of government is vitally important. And if Ray Holmberg has taken away the trust, the respect of the people, if he has in any way damaged that, he needs to realize that, having served in it since the 1970s. I don't think that you can do certain things and just try to protect yourself. I don't think that you can say, look, I'm slipping. My memory isn't what it should be. My ability to think through things is not what it should be. I'm at 78 years old right now, and then use that as an excuse for whatever might be coming because you knew you were under federal investigation. I don't think that you can just easily say that cell number isn't mine anymore. That cell phone isn't mine anymore. I don't think that you can easily say as a legislator that, okay, I was texting with a man that transported children across state lines while I was talking to him about getting his gay lover over to my place so I could give him a massage. I don't think that you can just ignore that and say, oh, that's gone. I'm not going to talk about it. No, these are public documents. At some point, they're going to come out. Yes, there's an investigation going on, and it's going to take a while. But you still hold one of those positions. You're still on the Legislative Management Committee. And because of that, you still bear a huge responsibility to protect the legislative branch of government. Now, I'm not calling for him to resign from legislative management, and I'm not calling for him to resign as a state senator because Chet Pollert said it best. You know, you deserve the right to have that information that would cause you to do that made public. What I am saying is that if he knows that more is coming, if he knows it's bad, then he owes it to the state of North Dakota and the people he serves to do just what I asked whether or not he was going to do. Let's head to the weather cave and visit with Too Tall Tom and get our 375948 1-800-880-5346. Let's get to the phone lines and get to Mark. Mark, you're on News and Views.
Hey, good morning, Joel. How you doing?
Doing well, Mark. Thanks for calling in.
Well, I tell you what, I'm in the middle of North Dakota. I'm just north and west of Hope, North Dakota, and a lot of snow on the ground. But what a beautiful state we have here! And you see a car about every 10 minutes, and that's the way I like it.
We've got room. We've got room for more. Yep.
Anyway, Joel, when you were talking to Kelly Armstrong, you said you don't get it, and I think you don't get it, Joel. And I'm not good at explaining things, but I'm going to give it another shot. Okay, when it comes to oil.
All right.
Oil companies are speculators. Do you agree with that?
Yes.
Okay, I agree with you. They're making a crazy profit, and if we all want to cash in on that, we will buy in on oil stocks. Okay, we can all cash in on that. Okay, it's our choice. Now, I imagine you have a retirement plan, a 401 or something similar to it. Is that fair to say?
Yes.
I hope. Okay, so everything in your portfolio, in your retirement fund, is all speculation. There may be some cash in there. There may be some annuities in there. I don't know. But even annuities are all speculation. So now an oil company, they are making ridiculous profits, okay? And I want to say more power to them, and it's hard to say that when gas is $4 a gallon. Now, you didn't – I don't think you brought it up, and maybe I missed it, that you didn't bring it up to Armstrong that people are paying through the nose for gasoline, and maybe you did. Because that's what really hits home. No matter what's going on with the oil companies, to me, what kills me is seeing working families. I'm retired now, and I'm not rich, but I'm going to do okay. But when I see people making 10, 15, even $20 an hour, and they're spending $100 a week to commute to work, that kills me. Okay, and I think it kills you too, Joe. I know you're a tender-hearted guy. Okay.
Well, I commute. Mark.
Well, I understand that. You need to work it into your contract as far as gas goes. That's between you and PFGO.
Yeah.
But what I'm getting at.
I got a minute here, Mark. So.
Yes, sir. So, are you still there?
Yeah, I am. But I want to get a chance to. I understand your premise. My argument, Mark, is not that they're not speculators or they're not betting on the come. My argument is this: they're complaining about something that they control. They have the permits, they have the land, they have the knowledge of what the market's doing. They can speculate, but they can't complain with me. They can't say that they're being stopped, and that was the premise of my argument.
So what you're saying is they're kind of talking on both sides of their mouth. They're
Exactly.
saying, hey,
exactly.
Whoa are we because the government is kicking our butts on this and that. Well, let me ask you something. Did President Biden tell the America when he was campaigning, he was going to shut down the oil industry and fossil fuel industry? Did he say that?
He focused. Mark, I'll comment it on the other side. Thank you. News and Views, our radio network. Before the break, we had a call, and I maybe should have just left the whole button on, but it was a great conversation about, whether or not the oil industry was speculators, which both of us agreed on. Was it Randy Abbey, I think was his name?
No, I can't even remember his name. But
Sorry about that.
Yeah.
He was from the central part of the state. But let me explain what I'm getting at. I think America will use less oil in the future. I do. I think that the world is moving that way, and the type of industry ends up, the type of American innovation will take us there because the world wants us to go there, and other parts of the world have gone there, and it's found to work. Now, will there be electric F-150 pickups in Steele, North Dakota anytime soon? Maybe somebody will buy them, but you're not going to see the majority of them be that. I get it. I understand it. What I'm trying to get at is the oil industry has a number of things that go way beyond what Joe Biden's doing with the big crosshairs on their back. Now, that being said, the Biden administration has in no way been a friend to the oil industry. I get that. I understand that. In large part because as he campaigned, he was going to decrease the use of fossil fuels. He told America that. And 7 million more people said that's what we want to buy. I get that. I understand that as well. We produce oil. It's good for us financially, and I stress financially, if we use more oil. But let's not be hypocrites about this as well, right? We are all in on wind energy. If we can produce it, if we can sell it. We are all in on ethanol and biodiesel. We can grow it. We can refine it. We can sell it. We can make the type of product that America is going to burn. People that raise corn were high-fiving when they heard that the Biden administration was going to push E85 or E15, I should say, into the summer, right? I mean, so an individual the other day jumped me and said, Joel, you're against oil. And he goes, oil is good. Oil is, we invest in oil here. I said, good. I said, but there's going to be, less oil used in the world. It might not show up as a huge part in my lifetime, but it will in Abby's lifetime. So, let's acknowledge that. Let's also acknowledge that nothing is stopping the oil industry from speculating. They can drill more wells. They can use the wells they've drilled. They can go back to the capped wells and produce more oil out of them. They now can access public lands. They got to pay a little bit higher tax, but as Congressman Kelly Armstrong said, he doesn't have any problem with that. Renegotiate them. So nothing is stopping them except the fact that they want public perception to be that they are being hindered from building their industry. Nothing stopping them except the future of use. In other words, the speculation. So let's understand that as well. They can roll the dice on their industry. Nothing stopping them. They're not rolling the dice on their industry because they think that there's going to be less of a need for it, is my guess. Paul, you're on News and Views. Go ahead, Paul.
Hey, Joe, thank you for taking my call and a great show. I'm glad I got a chance to, and like Mark, I'm on the road too, and I appreciate Mark's comments about educating me in the oil industry and your comments also just now. I wish I was a little bit more optimistic as you are, thinking that the ethanol industry is going to be the salvation of our energy problems. I wish I could jump on board and be a part of that, but I can't. I know you have friends that are farmers. I know the Klostermans, the Mauks, the Altoffs, guys down there that you probably have a beer with. And I don't know if they're really out there high-fiving about excited about this ethanol bit as much as you are. I did listen to Kelly Armstrong's comments. He sounds like a bright young man. I don't follow him. But what I did get from Kelly is that there's one thing that's keeping the oil industry from really get a hold of production, and that's uncertainty. And I think that's what you talk about speculation too, is the uncertainty. And I don't think there's a home contractor, electrical contractor, or anyone out there that is going to put their necks out on the limb without having some bit of a certainty that they're going to have some profit at the end. I think the oil companies are like that too, because right now President Biden and his administration is flip-flopping around like fish out of water and sending different mixed messages in that. As Mark, I'm retired also, and I spend a lot of time now, more than I have ever, watching markets, listening to economists and stuff like that. And that's the one thing that's driving force is the uncertainty in this oil production or in this market that's keeping oil companies from really going out and putting their neck on the limb to help reduce the energy shortage. I think President Biden did a very foolish thing by tapping into the reserves because, like Kelly said, we have to replenish those reserves, and we have to replenish the reserves of oil. And right now, if we're doing it now, we're replenishing with the high-priced oil. And so I don't know if I'm off, on board or if I'm not really getting what is being sought here. But I guess in essence, I called to get educated, and I like listening to you, and I like your guest, and that's my comments, I guess.
Paul, I want to go back to one thing that you said in the middle of there, and that is whether or not farmers, and you mentioned some names of guys I know really well, and so you made me smile because these are great guys, but you did say that you're not sure that they're high-fiving, and I think you're right about that, but let me just say this. Do you think part of that is the fact that they take the renewable fuel standard for granted? And what I mean is this, that oil speculators for years have made the argument that if we're going to have free market, then we shouldn't be forced to have ethanol be part of the equation, that they shouldn't have to blend, that ethanol should have to stand on its own. And of course, to know if you raise corn, and in my neck of the woods, you drive that down to Hankinson to the ethanol plant and make a profit, make a benefit over the normal market price because of that, because of the renewable fuel standard, that you are benefiting immensely from the belief that ethanol is helping when it comes to our environment and it comes to America. And so you can say that farmers aren't looking at ethanol in any way, shape, or form as being a huge part of the solution to what we're trying to get at, which is a new standard of not burning fossil fuels. But the truth is those same farmers fought hard and take for granted, I think, the fact they have the renewable fuel standard. And I don't want to say that after you're off air. I want to say that while you're on air so you can respond to it.
Yeah, and you know what? You're not going to get any argument from me, Joel. Like I said, I worked in the industry down in the Washington area for 30 years. And when those ethanol plants came in, when them fructose plants like Cargill came in, I heard and I saw the benefits of it. There's no doubt. That opened up a market for them that is like anything you could see. I have a brother down in southwestern Minnesota. They have ADM down there. They have ethanol plants through he takes full advantage of them. I agree 110%, absolutely. The thing that just drives me crazy is that, last I looked, we got $7 corn, $14 soybeans, $11 wheat. And there's only one reason the markets are driven up, and that's because of low supply.
Yeah.
The bins are not full. They're not. And so it irks me that we're being told that this ethanol, we're taking the feedstuff away from livestock production, and we're going to make it into an energy source. And it just doesn't make any sense to me. Like I talked to you last week, I believe it was, on it. And I just think that we have resources. We have resources, and we're not tapping it. And I don't know what Kelly's doing down there in Washington. I really don't. But I just feel like the Midwesterners are not selling our message here in North Dakota, Minnesota, South Dakota, Wisconsin. There's a message to be sought,
Okay.
And
Thank you, Paul. I want to get to Mark. It's a double dip. It's whatever you want, but he was good enough to call back. And Mark, I got caught by the bottom of the artery, what we call a hard break. So I want to let you respond to what I said. You just heard another part of it with my conversation I just had. So go ahead. Explain to me the 101 side of the economy of it.
So the one, and again, Joel, I sometimes I don't get certain things, and I'm a little hard headed that way, and I probably never will get certain things. The whole speculation thing in the oil market is like any other market. Now, when Biden came into office, day one, he shut down the pipeline. Okay, not a good thing. That was not a good thing at all. It takes 10 years, like Armstrong was saying, it takes 10 years to even get one of those online because of permitting and red tape.
But
blah,
Mark,
blah, blah.
Mark, you say shut down the pipeline. Are we talking about the Keystone Pipeline?
Correct.
But
let me finish.
Mark,
Yep.
Time's going to get me again, and I want you to be able to respond to this. The Keystone Pipeline had 4 years to go through America. They didn't get it done. They didn't go through. They were ready. That Keystone Pipeline didn't go across. They were trying to sell overseas, not to us. And the oil industry in North Dakota fought the Keystone Pipeline. So I just want to be clear on that.
Right. But I'm talking about the whole country, not just North Dakota. So when Biden got in office, not did he just shut down that pipeline, and he also pulled permits and stopped permits on federal property. And that all adds up. Now, when the Russian oil went away, I don't know if it was 6 or 7%, and we shouldn't buy nothing from Russia. The hell with them people, okay?
Mm-hmm.
But I'm Russian, okay? Pardon me.
Yeah.
But anyway, the thing is that whether it's corn, whether it's sugar, whether it's cocoa, whether it's oil, these are all commodities, okay? And they're worldwide commodities. Now, the president since the president's been in office, gas has doubled in price. It was $1.89 when he came into office. Okay, now it's $4 or a little under $4, and he had a lot to do with that. You cannot change. Now, okay, so
Mark,
a couple weeks ago,
Mark,
he blamed it on the Russians.
I'm going to ask you to do another thing, which is to call back tomorrow because I got to get to a break and get my guest on. But he did say one thing, ladies and gentlemen, that was clearly wrong, which is the president pulled the permits. They're still drilling on public lands before this other move. What he did was he blocked future permits, which he opened up again. All right, let's get to the weather cave and get to Too Tall Tom. Now we'll be at ND Country Fest. John Gurley is one of our point people. He's an individual that has worked and he's set up, and he made sure that ND Country Fest has become one of the biggest country festivals in the country. John, good to have you back on News and Views.
Excellent. How you doing, buddy?
When do you quit announcing new acts? It sounds like you did announce another one here.
We yesterday announced Dylan Carmichael. He's a new hotshot. His two uncles are John Michael Montgomery and Eddie Montgomery from Montgomery Gentry. We've been watching him for a couple of years. The new single's called Hot Beer, written by Hardy, produced by John Hardy, who's one of our headliners this year. And I just got an email this morning. It's been out for a couple of days, has 2.5 million views already. So that feels like a top 10 single.
Yeah, that's going to do all okay. I think we both know that. How did the Yeartown tour go? And I want to explain to people what this is. The Yeartown tour is ND Country Fest, telling people they care about them and running around the countryside and holding, concerts and shows so that people could get a feel of what's happening. How did people turn out for it, John?
Oh, my God, it was absolutely huge. We did 10 nights this year, and I think they did almost 4,000 miles, 160 stops. You're right. Luke and Brandon just came up with this crazy idea. We're going to go out and hang out with our fans. And now it's turned into a little concert tour in addition to all the stops during the day. You're right, David Lee this year, Julia Cole with him, Diamonds and Whiskey. We turned up the heat on your town tour. Yeah, that was quite a deal.
So can I ask you to act like an auctioneer and give people the lineup here?
Oh, my God, yeah. John Party, Chris Jansen, Travis Tritt, Locash, Jody Messina, Colt Ford, Tracy Bird, Dina Carter, Shenandoah, Julia Cole, Blackhawk, Copper Chief, and as I said, we just announced Dylan Carmichael. If you're not familiar with him, Google him, look at that most recent video. This guy is a star in the making.
And what days? What date?
So July 6th through 9, we went to 4 days this year. Some of our fans on last year's Yeartown Tour said, why can't we open this thing on Wednesday? And we got it worked out. Locash is the headliner on Wednesday. That's our give back night. Music is free, if you can believe it. It's an opportunity for a free will donation. 100% of those funds go directly to local FFA and 4-H. We've now given them over $400,000 in the last few years. So it is going to be a big July in New Salem, North Dakota.
They put their money where their mouth is. John, I'm going to call you back. I've got your cell, whether you like it or not. I want a story or two when I call you back, okay?
Sounds good. You got it, buddy.
You bet. John Gurley, ladies and gentlemen, one of the individuals that put all this together, and they know what they're doing. I mean, that's the sweet part. I've been there. It's run fan-based. They care about who goes first and foremost. And I think that's the thing that impressed me the most. I'm going to make my way out there. I've got to just see it and take it in and see the guys again and just do that. Now, we had a lot of good, peaceful, pleasant conversation today. Nothing where you got me as a redhead mad and acting like I'm a pouting little guy, and nothing that I got you mad to where you're calling me names and hanging up the phone on me. That's the way this should work, right? For my buddies back home whose names got mentioned on air today, tough cookies. That's the price you pay for knowing me. All right. Good riding with you, folks.